Welcome to Knowledge Valley. The role of industrialization in shaping the modern cities in England cannot be overstated. The early industrial cities of Britain, such as Leeds and Manchester, attracted large numbers of migrants to the textile mills set up in the 18th century. During the 18th and 19th centuries, London became a centre for international trade and commerce, attracting a large number of traders and merchants from all over the world. London was a powerful magnet for the migrant population, even when it did not have large factories. Apart from the dockyard, 5 major types of industries employed a large number of workers: clothing and footwear, wood and furniture, metals and engineering, printing and stationery, and precision products such as surgical instruments, watches, and objects of precious metal. The impact of industrialization and urbanization on family life in Britain was profound. The family life transformed in terms of function and shape. The family as an institution had broken down as the ties between members of households loosened, and among the working class, the institution of marriage tended to break down. Women of the upper and middle classes in Britain faced increasingly higher levels of isolation, although their lives were made easier by domestic maids who cooked, cleaned, and cared for young children on low wages. Women lost their industrial jobs and were forced to withdraw into their homes. The public space became increasingly a male preserve. The steps taken by the British state to provide housing for working classes between 1919 and 1939 were significant. Between the two world wars, the responsibility for housing the working classes was accepted by the British state, and 1 million houses, most of them single-family cottages, were built by local authorities. Meanwhile, the city had extended beyond the range where people could walk to work, and the development of suburbs made new forms of mass transport absolutely necessary, which led ultimately to the setting up of railways. The steps taken to clean up London were quite extensive. Demands were made for new lungs. Efforts were made to bridge the difference between the city and the countryside through a green belt around London. Attempts were made to decongest localities, green the open spaces, and reduce pollution. Large blocks of apartments were built, and rent control was introduced in Britain during the First World War to ease the impact of a severe housing shortage. Architect and planner Ebenezer Howard developed the principles of the Garden City, a pleasant space full of plants and trees. Raymond Unwin and Barry Parker developed the garden suburb of New Earswick based on Howard's idea. Benefits of London. Tube Railway. The London Underground Railway partially solved the housing crisis by carrying large masses of people to and from the city. The population in the city became more dispersed. Better planned suburbs and a good railway network enabled large numbers to live outside central London and travel to work. Air pollution, nuisance for the Londoners. The congestion in the 19th century industrial city of London led a yearning for clean country air because of widespread use of coal in homes and industries. Air pollution led to bad tempers, smoke-related illnesses, and dirty clothes. Demands were made for new lungs for the city. Factory owners and steam engine owners were told to invest in technologies that would improve their machinery. Despite hurdles and opposition from the industries, the Smoke Abatement Acts of 1847 and 1853 were passed. Attempts were made to decongest localities, green the open spaces, reduce pollution, and landscape the city. Large blocks of apartments were built and rent control was introduced. Architect and planner Ebenezer Howard developed the Garden City. Sources of entertainment for the common people of London were quite varied. The London season was an annual feature for the wealthy Britishers. Several cultural events, such as the opera, the theatre, and classical music performances, were organized for an elite group of 300 to 400 families in the late 18th century. The working class, on the other hand, met in pubs to have drinks, exchange news, or discuss politics. In the 19th century, some libraries, art galleries, and museums were established to provide people with a sense of history. Music halls were popular among the lower classes. By the early 20th century, cinema became the great mass entertainment for mixed audiences. Holidaying by the sea also became popular among the industrial workers. The transformation of Bombay into an industrial city is quite fascinating. At first, Bombay was the major outlet for cotton textiles from Gujarat. Later, in the 19th century, the city functioned as a port through which large quantities of raw materials such as cotton and opium would pass. Gradually, it also became an important administrative center in Western India, and then, by the end of the 19th century, a major industrial center. Bombay became the capital of the Bombay Presidency in 1819 after the Maratha defeat in the Anglo-Maratha War. With the growth of trade in cotton and opium, large communities of traders and bankers, as well as artisans and shopkeepers, came to settle in Bombay. The establishment of textile mills led to a fresh surge in migration. Bombay had its first cotton textile mill established in 1854. By 1921, there were 85 cotton mills with about 146,000 workers. The Chawls of Bombay were unique living spaces. The working people, who migrated from various parts, lived in thickly populated chawls. Chawls are multi-storied structures built in the native parts of the town. Each chawl was divided into smaller one-room tenements which had no private toilets. The homes being small, streets and neighborhoods were used for a variety of activities such as working, washing, sleeping, and various types of leisure activities. The magicians, monkey players, and acrobats used to regularly perform their acts in an open space in the middle of 4 chawls. Liquor shops and akharas came up in any empty spot. The Rent Act in Bombay was a significant piece of legislation. The Rent Act was passed in Mumbai, Bombay, in the year 1918. To solve the problem of housing, the Rent Act was passed with the aim of keeping the rents reasonable. However, it had the opposite effect of producing a severe housing crisis, since landlords withdrew houses from the market.